I was always bitterly discontented with everything I wrote. I've never, to this day, been completely satisfied with anything I've written. I see great vast holes in it.
I'm an alligator.
And then I started reading people like William Burroughs, and I started learning about the cut-up techniques that they employed to create new ways of thinking. And I thought I'd try and apply that to writing. So that's kind of how it evolved.
It was like doing a painting, a non-objective painting. It was rather like sort of playing with the colours in the paint itself, and looking at it for a bit and then seeing what figurative image comes off it, and then trying to either hide that or amplify it or whatever. It was sort of, it's a nice way of working.
Sometimes you get so lonely. Sometimes you get nowhere.
Brian Eno, he's very helpful in terms of opening me up as a writer and changing my ideas about how I can write songs.
Every place.
There was absolutely no format. It wasn't at all formal. We came often with virtually nothing at all. And we would just take 5 or 6 notes or 2 or 3 chords and just repeat them in various sequences.
Oh, we can be heroes just for one day.
With Brian particularly, the whole idea of using a recording studio as an instrument, of not necessarily thinking you have to be prepared totally before you go in, that accidents will happen, and sometimes planned accidents work out really well. If there's a bad note, you can layer that note several times with other instruments, and suddenly that bad note sounds like an extraordinary piece of arrangement.
I've never done good things. I've never done bad things. I never did anything out of the blue. Whoa.
And so with the ongoing kind of music that I was doing at the time, Low, Heroes and Lodger, finally Scary Monsters, which by the time of Scary Monsters, the kind of music that I was doing was becoming very acceptable. And I was not the only artist. Well, there was just a small group of us in '76 doing that kind of music. By the early '80s, it was definitely the sound of the early '80s.
Put on your red shoes and dance the blues.
I think having had the gigantic success of Let's Dance, I suddenly, for the first time in a long, long time, felt trapped. But also, I think I was fairly lured by the idea of that kind of international fame. And it seemed like, you know, I wasn't quite willing to break out of that trap myself quite so easily. I thought, well, I'll have another stab at this kind of thing because this is exhilarating.
One day, I'm gonna write a poem in a letter. One day, I'm gonna get the faculty together.
Looking back on it all, Tonight and Never Let Me Down, what I think I unfortunately did is pulverize some perfectly good songs. I think I should have sabotaged those songs. I dealt with them far too quickly and thinking in a far too linear fashion of making them work within radio format. And whenever I've done that, it's always been an utter catastrophe. And I probably should never have done that, because some of the songs themselves I really like. But I always say, I thought, God, I wish I'd done that again. You know, it's not quite. Oh, well.
The show that I'm doing this year will be very, very theatrical compared to that last show. Much more like the shows that I used to do in the early 70s.
When all your faith is failing, call my name. When you've got nothing coming, call my name.
Despite the set being so big and the impressiveness, I thought, of the clutter of activity that was going on throughout, it should have worked in stadiums, but worked in arenas. And I think anybody who saw it indoors will testify to the fact that it was probably a really exciting show. But the pure size of it, I had thought, well, somehow you've got to be big in stadiums. But what I didn't take into account is because of the finite smallness of everything that was happening on stage, didn't go across in a stadium situation. That was a big mistake. I inherently like what we were doing. I just don't think it came off quite the way it should have done.
Tin machine, the zombies that are past, the kind that beats his baby up, the preachers and their ass.
On the guitar side of things, having now worked with Tin Machine for the last year and a half, I really quite like working with a small band again.
I can read, I can count down. I don't know, book from countdown.
Let's Dance was impressive, but it's not, that doesn't give me the same kind of satisfaction as, say, I Can't Read from the Tin Machine album, which for me is great. It's a great piece of work.
I can't read shit anymore.
There's already a second Tin Machine album done, right?
Yes.
In Australia?
Yeah.
That was quick.
Yeah, well, we had the urge to go do, you know, and also I wanted to take them to a land they'd never been to before, to see what it did to them. And,
What did it do to them?
Not very much.
Is this the last time you'll be doing this material? I mean, you'll never do this again, or you generally just don't want to do great?
Absolutely and unequivocally the last time.
Really?
Without doubt.
Oh, gee.
No, I won't ever touch them again.
Really? What are you going to do with them?
Well, I'll probably get clones in and they'll do them all over the world like Andrew Lloyd Webber does. I've noted that there's been a great emphasis on the older bands and older artists to go out with very large contingents. And so I thought, okay, just do the opposite. I want to keep the stage as minimalist as possible. I really wanted to have the feel of an opera or ballet stage, where it was just one large, dark space that could be lit in a theatrical fashion.